Good evening, guys. Welcome to Saturday Night Revolutionary Change, Pontificating with Pete. Hope you all are doing well this evening. And it is going to be a very interesting show this evening. You know, usually I try to do these live streams. And thank you very much, Teresa. Right off the bat, guys, smash that like button if you are here. If you are new, please subscribe. Please share. I want to get this around to as many people as possible. So I'm going to attempt, when it makes sense, to try to have a guest even on Pontificating with Pete on Saturdays. And tonight, obviously, we're going to have a very special guest, a regular guest of our channel, Steve Grumbine of The Real Progressives. And the reason I'm bringing Steve on this evening, if you guys have not seen, hopefully you haven't, although maybe you should just because you want to get an idea of what this is all about. We're going to have a conversation with Steve tonight about Vaush. Vaush decided to make a lengthy video the other day trashing MMT. I mean, trashing it in the most ignorant way possible. There was really no substance behind what he was talking about. And as soon as I started listening to the first few minutes, I just said, yeah, Steve definitely needs to come on here and talk about this, because I'm not going to pontificate on Vaush's opinion about MMT. I think what's essential here is that you have somebody that really knows the topic that can combat what somebody like Vaush is saying. Vaush has a huge audience. And anytime we talk about other content creators, it has to be in the context of it being of value, not let's just gossip about what the next topic is. That, you know, somebody said this, somebody said that. I saw a couple of, MAGA female influencers arguing with each other about who has the better diamond ring. I mean, that's the type of stuff that we have no time for at all. However, if somebody with a substantially large platform is using it for the purpose of not actually talking about an issue correctly that is of vital importance to all of us, I think it is essential that we use our platform to combat that type of language. Now, granted, some of the MMTers went on there and voiced their opinion. Kudos to them for doing so. But it is essential on our part that we do what is necessary to speak out against content creators who are just flatly wrong in a very profound way. I mean, I believe he dropped this clip yesterday and it's already got 60,000 views. And if you're going to spread that type of a message, it's only right that somebody who actually knows what they're talking about on the subject can come on board and really talk about it. Speaking of a subject that I can talk about, that I think we all can agree is very important right now. As we've mentioned before, it is less than 2 months away from today that we are looking at 2 years that the genocide in Gaza has been taking place. All of you know, and we'll speak about it at even greater length on Monday when Jen is here, about the fact that they are legitimately going through their final solution stages in Gaza right now. Netanyahu has been speaking at length about a ground invasion, whatever the hell that means. There is no such thing as an invasion. You're not fighting a standing army. You're not fighting any type of a legitimate military. That's not what Israel does. They're all a bunch of cowards, as far as I'm concerned, and naturally they're going to proceed because no one is stopping them. As of this moment, doesn't mean that's not going to change. But what should change, and what should be of universal importance to anyone who is in the political space, I don't care where you stand politically, to me, this is a substantial issue that has been brought to our attention, not just by Track AIPAC, but by Code Pink as well. As many of you probably know, we have a Congress that is on recess right now. And what has half of the new more than half, excuse me. As of right now, my understanding is that there are 63 new members of Congress, 63 total between the House and the Senate. When you think about it, that's actually a pretty decent turnover in terms of representation, but I digress. It's over 10%, it's about 12%. But with that said, why is this significant? Because 35 members between the two parties are currently in Israel on vacation, if you want to call it vacation. What you have here is the first list that we are aware of. of the 10 members of the Democratic Party that are currently sitting in Congress as freshman members, just new people, not even waiting. Let's get them over there as quickly as possible. Mr. Cross-Eye is not there from Westchester County, New York, but a lot of others are. And there's a lot of other AIPAC-funded representatives that aren't necessarily on this trip, but it almost looks like this photograph of the Democratic members was taken from an airport hangar of some kind. But nevertheless, you've got a whole bunch of people like Nellie Pooh, who happens to be a representative in North Jersey. Could that be a Zionist district? It's possible. I would imagine that a handful of these districts are. Laura Gillen, who is a New York, partially has New York City, I believe, Queens, is part of the district that she does represent, which means she crosses over into New York City. She has been a very outspoken congressional representative against Zoran Mamdani becoming the next mayor of New York City. So that should come as no surprise, even if she's only taken at this point just over $100,000. And of course, you have somebody like Brad Schneider, who I am familiar with. He is a Jewish representative in the Chicago suburbs, I believe, of Illinois. And he has taken a whopping $1.3 million from the Israel lobby already. Hasn't even had a chance to warm up that seat of what he is hoping becomes the rest of his life in Congress. Still wants the people of the Israel lobby to know that he is fully on board, not just with the genocide, but being a corporate whore for their every beck and call. Pete Aguilar, a representative who has become very loud in Congress about trying to be a voice for progressive issues. Yeah, really progressive when you take almost $1 million from AIPAC. Now, for those of you that are in California, I'm sure you're familiar with Mr. Aguilar, so this one should come as absolutely no surprise. But why stop? You've got another Gil Cisneros, representative of California's 31st district, which I believe is by Los Angeles, and he's taken almost $100,000 already, and he is not waiting at all to get on board the Zionist Nazi train. That's, no, again, no surprise. Some of these regions, as I mentioned, are going to come as a surprise, and some of them are not. Again, if you happen to be representative of a district that is heavily influenced by the Zionist Jewish vote, which in the case of Jen's run against Wasserman Schultz, yes, it happens to be a very Zionist dominant district, so that should come as no surprise. Now you have John Olszewski. He's taken a little under $87,000 for representing Maryland's 2nd district. Now, I believe that this district is part of the DC metro suburbs. If anybody wants to correct me in the chat, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not totally familiar with him as a representative, but I could be wrong. Luis Rivas, California's 29th district, again, Southern California. But what should come is maybe somewhat of a surprise for a lot of people, and maybe not so much with somebody like a Laura Gillen or a Brad Schneider. They are representing highly, densely Zionist districts, whereas Cisneros, Rivas, Aguilar, these are predominantly Latino Catholic districts that they represent. Now, is it possible that there are Zionists within those districts that have a lot of political influence? I would imagine so. But I think it's also important as we continue to evolve in our knowledge about how our political representation exists in this country, it is essential that we become more and more familiar with those that are selling us out. Now, why would somebody like Wesley Bell feel the need to take almost $13 million in campaign contributions from the Israel lobby? He represents St. Louis, Missouri. Now, as far as I know, not a huge Zionist population. In fact, the overwhelming majority of the population that he represents is black. Cori Bush, who was the representative that the Israel lobby made it their mission in life to get her kicked out of office, this is who they stuffed all that money behind to get her out. Now, was it necessarily because they wanted to have some type of a sizable Zionist representation in St. Louis, especially in the eastern part of St. Louis, which is predominantly black? Probably not, but they certainly didn't want somebody like Cori Bush, who is very outspoken about the Israel lobby. So they had to make an example of her, just like they made an example of Jamal Bowman. So Wesley Bell is their bitch in more ways than one. Now, Tim Kennedy, New York's 26th district, which I believe is upstate New York, pretty close to Elise Stefanik. Again, whether it's a Democrat, whether it's a Republican, it doesn't matter. They are on the take. And for such a little amount of money, you're going to go on this trip, this all expenses paid, roll out the red carpet. Let's, see how much we can exploit a representative for the least amount of money. Tim Kennedy, shame on you, especially, man. You're fucking Irish. And you take that shit, fuck you, man. And of course, as I mentioned, Nellie Poo, or Pow, however which way she wants to pronounce her name, she's not much in the way of having to take too much to sell out. But she's a representative in North Jersey. And my understanding is that she likes to block a lot of people on social media. So again, it should come as no surprise. This is who our Congress represents. They represent the highest bidder. And as of today, the Israel lobby is more than happy to do just that. Keep everybody in line. But we're not done. This is just the Democrats. Colin, could you please show us the Republicans courtesy of Code Pink? Now, if you might be able to blow that up a little bit so we can get in a little close here. Now, as you can imagine, these representatives are on a very tight leash, and much tighter, I would imagine, as of right now in the Republican Party, because the Republican Party, of course, is the party in power. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, coordinated this wonderful shindig to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Got to touch that wall. And so as we go through the list of these representatives, the one and only representative from the state of Wyoming, Harriet Hagman, she, of course, is on that list. Claudia Tenley, the only problem with this list is it doesn't list where these representatives actually are from. Now, I know that these are all GOP representatives. And of course, as you could see, Randy Fine, which the numbers fluctuate to determine exactly how much he has taken. I believe this may just be from AIPAC. So from AIPAC, he has taken over $125,000, but from the Israel lobby overall, he's taken over $1 million. One of the biggest shitbags in all of Congress is Brandon Gill. Now, this guy Gill is a congressional representative, I believe, out of Houston. And he has only taken a small amount of money. Colin, could you please blow it up a little bit? I don't know if you can do that or not. Just kind of scroll in. Is that, yeah, there you go. Okay. So as you can see, Brandon Gill, who has only taken $26,000, not a lot of money, but this guy is one of the biggest shitbags in all of politics. I mean, you want to talk about somebody who writes the most disgusting, reprehensible language towards anything related to not only Palestinians, but here's one of the absolute worst inciters of violence against Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. The guy's inflammatory language is as bad as it gets. If you are not familiar with Brandon Gill, I would suggest you become familiar with him. This is the type of person that really gives the worst impression, not just as Americans of our Congress, but probably to anybody around the world. The level of ignorance and arrogance that this man conducts business is off the charts. And he's a cheap whore, as it would appear. Only $26,000, that's all it took for him to commit to this. As far as any of the other representatives are concerned, Marlon Stutzman, Jewish guy, huge Zionist. Some of them do this for a career. Others do it opportunistically. It depends on where you stand. Representative Greg Goldman, another one. Scroll down a little, Colin. I want to see the bottom line. So for the guys at the bottom, obviously the person who stands out here, if you could scroll up, I can't see Tom's full information. There you go. So guys, Tom Emmer. Now, It's one thing to have Mike Johnson go with you. Now you got Tom Emmer going, the House Majority Whip. He's taken almost $600,000. Again, these people are just getting started. And if you couldn't get more waspy than Jefferson Shreve, $12,000, that's all it took? That's all it took for you, Jeff? Jefferson. Mr. Jefferson. That's all it took for you to sell out this country? Because that's all these guys are doing. At least with Guy Reschenthaler, he at least asked for a little bit of scratch. He at least was willing to say, all right, look, I'm going to do it, but you're going to give me a lot of money to do it. I'm not doing this for cheap. Look at these other guys, Tony Weed, Bob Onder, Troy Downing. These guys are such cheap whores. But in the end, I think that for them, it's, as we've stated before, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican. It just matters that you're in the club. And if you want to stay in the club without facing any resistance, as of this moment, as I mentioned, a lot of this can change. But as of right now, these representatives, they're in it for the long haul. And they are convinced that our country is not going to rise up against this corporate infrastructure that is led in many ways by Israel. Is it going to change? Can't get them all at once, but brick by brick, perhaps. I do believe Randy Fine is going to get challenged. I do believe he's going to have a legitimate challenger, and we'll see what happens. If you could scroll to the top, Colin, just want to check the top line one more time. And even here, as I mentioned, Harriet Hagman, the only representative in the state of Wyoming, all these other representatives, John McGuire, McCall, who, again, Congressman McCall, I mean, talk about an absolute sellout. But then again, you look at somebody like Julie Fedorachik. I don't know where she's a representative. I think I've heard of her before. But how about Michael Baumgartner? $10,000? Heck, I could raise $10,000. If I gave you $10,000, would you not take the Israel lobby's money? But again, as we have seen, especially with somebody like AOC, it's not even a question of whether they're taking a substantial amount of the money. Randy Fine is a cheap whore. He's a fat-ass cheap whore. How's that? He's a bad man, a very bad man. He's probably got a lot of skeletons in his closet that he doesn't want to have come out. And Claudia Tenney. Can anybody tell me where Claudia Tenney is a representative? I'm always curious. Harriet Hagman she looks like a real psychopath. People he ate, maybe. I know he eats Palestinian babies. I mean, he's pretty adamant about, what's on his menu. But all kidding aside, this is a disgusting display of just how bad our federal representatives actually are. And if anybody can explain it well, of all the people that, as we now see how I would describe these honeypot situations. And again, I'm not here to tell you, and I am not here to defend Matt Gaetz in any way as far as what he may or may not have done with an underage woman. What I am here to tell you is that if he was exposed, he was only exposed because he wasn't playing ball. Matt Gaetz, unlike the rest of these representatives that I have shown you, may have the same type of skeletons that all of them have, but he decided that he wasn't playing ball with Israel, and they decided to come after him with everything they had. And here's what he had to say regarding this trip that these congressional representatives just took and why it's so detrimental to all of us. And he said this to Glenn Greenwald.
That AIPAC trip, I went on subsequent trips, and there is an actual downward pressure from the leadership and even the committee chairs. Like if you're on the Foreign Affairs Committee, if you're on the Armed Services Committee, if you're on the Intelligence Committee, there's like an expectation that you go there and some...
Right there. It's not even a question of whether you take the money. It's you are expected. You are in the Democratic caucus. You are in the Republican caucus. It doesn't matter. if you are a part of this and you want to be on the team, you will join us on this excursion, whether you've taken $10,000 like Bumgardner took, whether you've taken $1 million like Mike Johnson or Randy Fine has taken. It doesn't matter. Either you're with us or you're against us. Perhaps in the not too distant future, things will change and the Israel lobby will no longer have the stranglehold over our country that it currently does. But as of today, they have it. Could you imagine going to Israel right now? Right now? And not just going there on a trip, going there to the wall. Like everything's fine. Like they're not just trying to invade. Again, we got to have a better word than invasion. There's got to be a better word than invasion for what is going on right now in Gaza and what Netanyahu is attempting to do. But with that in the backdrop, that's what you're doing. That's insanity. In fact, what it should be is political suicide. That's what it should be. But we all know we live one nation under Palantir now. And that is one of the biggest reasons why we're not able to stop this as of yet. But one of the key reasons that we should be able to stop it is if we continue to band together collectively as a United States of America. That's one of our greatest sins, is that we figure out a way not to band together, to not represent we the people. Full stop. A lot of people may not like Matt Gaetz. I have my issues with him, but I know people that know him very well. And he took a real stand. And that's why he's not there anymore. Again, I am not saying he did or did not do what they said that he did regarding that young woman and whether he crossed state lines. Throw all of that aside for 1 second and ask yourself this. If he played ball with the Israel lobby, would he still be sitting in Congress right now? I think he would.
Sort of like, I don't know, a congressional Hodge. And I remember being at I'll never go back. I was at the King David Hotel and I rolled back to my room unexpectedly when the rest of the group was still on some planned activity. And there was some dude in my room. I'm like, hey man, what are you doing here? And he acted like he was associated with the hotel and taking an inventory, but had no clipboard. And so, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why they want members of Congress over there.
Could you imagine, forget being a congressional representative. Forget any of that. Could you imagine going back to your hotel room when you're on supposed vacation and you find somebody in your room? I mean, I understand it's a hotel, so it's not an apartment, so you can't say it's a B&E, but it kind of is. And could you imagine that shock of seeing a person like sitting there? Hey, we're part of AIPAC. Yeah, it is a B&E. But the law does not apply to the Israel lobby. The law does not apply to those who believe and in many ways are above the law. So when somebody pulls something like that, it's a very disturbing circumstance. Kit, good to see you. Guys, make sure that you have smashed that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you share the stream. We're already at 250 live viewers, but as of this moment, we only have 142 likes. We need you to hit that like button. We really appreciate it. I do like how Gaetz is very chill about all of this, but Lord knows I would be a lot more upset. And maybe he had it out with the guy, but that goes to show you just how dangerous the Israel lobby really is and how much they believe that they own our government And you know what? Right now, they do. But that doesn't mean it has to stay that way.
And it is ideologically to steep them in this notion that the protection of Israel is of great import to people in America. But it's really not that important to voters. And that is becoming more clear on the right and left.
And he's absolutely right. He's 100% correct. That is what's changing. This is becoming a universal issue amongst the political populace, especially the millennial and Gen Z generations. Because the future really does belong to us. I don't want to discount Gen X. Jen's Gen X. Rachel's Gen X. We've got a lot of good, I think Brett Boyle's Gen X. I think we got a lot of good Gen Xers here. So I don't want to discount the Gen X group. But so much of the future rests with millennials and Gen Zers. And so it would appear on the surface, with few exceptions, like scum sucker Charlie Kirk, who does it all for money and power. He doesn't have an ideal. He's not an ideologue. He doesn't believe in shit. He believes in whatever the Koch-funded Turning Point USA tells him to do. But Matt Gaetz is absolutely correct here. The overwhelming majority of people are not on board with this. They're just not. And that should be heartwarming for everybody, even in the face of what we're dealing with right now, which is an unconscionable, reprehensible genocide that is almost 2 years old. And it's been presented to us live without interruption. How people can live with themselves, I don't know. But kudos to Glenn Greenwald, because for him, it's all about the story. And that is exactly why we do what we do. That is the essence of why this is so vital. And so let's keep spreading that word, because that is our job. If you guys are here, again, please hit that like button. We're very grateful to have such a big audience already this evening. Steve Grumbine will join us in less than a half an hour. We're already at 276 live stream viewers, so we're moving on up that ladder. Let's get to 300, guys. We're currently at 176 likes, and I would very much appreciate all of you making that concerted effort to help us out. It really does go a long way. I want to transition. You know, I've been emphasizing a lot that when we're going to have conversations on our channel about important key topics, I think it is vital that we all have insight from people that know what they're talking about. Now, I do consider myself someone who thirsts for knowledge. I want to learn as much as I can, but even I'm limited in my time and capacity to do as much as I can. I also think it's important that we hear from people who have actually been behind enemy lines, if you will. Now, Matt Gaetz has mentioned that he has been to Israel on those manipulation trips, I guess you would call them. But there is somebody else who actually has lived behind those lines. And I want to give a lot of credit to this gentleman. I want to say his name correctly before I present the clip. I don't want to mispronounce his name. He's from Israel, currently lives in Germany. And I believe the way that you say his name is Shir Haver, Dr. Shir Haver. Now, one of the things that we have talked about at length on our channel is how the Israel economy is actually collapsing. Now, a lot of people would say, well, how's that possible? The stock market in Israel is doing great. Well, this is why it actually isn't doing great, as Dr. Haver will explain.
I call the Israeli economy a zombie economy because every economic indicator, every analysis conducted by professionals is saying that the Israeli economy doesn't really exist anymore. It has collapsed to the point that no sane person should give Israel any credit. The bonds that Israel is selling around the world are sold for political reasons. The only ones who are buying these bonds are just trying to finance Israel's genocide.
And there is the key point. So when we see that Israel's economy is going through the roof via the stock market, think of your fellow Americans, if you even want to call them that. I call them traders. When I invest personally, I invest in hard assets. I do everything in my capacity to avoid the stock market. Why? First of all, because you can't trust it. It's completely manipulated, especially now. I mean, you can't go through the housing crisis, the market crash, everything goes in cycles, yes, but the type of insider knowledge that people that are in the game know. It's absolutely horrific. And Mark Svensson is correct. It is a casino. Now, you want to talk about a real casino right now. You know, I've mentioned Palantir and how horrific they are. Alex Karp, if there is the ultimate Bond villain in our political discourse today in the United States, Netanyahu on the international stage. But in terms of domestic, Alex Karp to me is the absolute worst. And when you hear him talk about Palantir and how much they have invested in Israel, there are content creators who are not even in the political lane who brag about the dividends that you can make off of investing in Palantir, even though it's been clearly documented that what they are doing is supporting Israel's efforts to commit genocide. So that's what Dr. Haver is correct about here. The type of people that invest in Palantir are the same type of people that are still investing in Israel despite what's happening right now.
Not really interested in making an interest payments on these bonds because it's very unlikely that Israel will ever be able to pay back those bonds. So this is a deeper level of crisis than we've seen in economic crises of the 21st century, like in Argentina or in Greece, where the economy collapses, but the state doesn't collapse because the state institutions continue to exist. The state can still rebuild the economy, maybe reissue a new currency, make some kind of debt repayment program. This is not This is not the case with Israel because the institutions themselves are falling apart.
They were really shrewd when they decided to launch a preemptive attack, unprovoked, against Iran. Perhaps that wasn't the smartest move. When we look back on the biggest military empires, or just empires, in world history, what was the downfall almost universally for all of those empires? The Roman Empire, of course, is the one that comes to mind first. Military overexpansion. This idea that we are going to see greater Israel in lieu of everything that's going on. Pride is greatest before the fall. We all know that. And so I do believe that exactly what he's talking about here is a key part of why things may be high right now, but oh, they will go so very low very fast. It's just a matter of time.
But nevertheless, the killing continues. The soldiers continue to fight. Those soldiers who are still deployed in Gaza. And a lot of people in Israel are continuing to live their lives as if nothing has happened. And even what is really glaring is the stock exchange in Israel, which is rising. So these things, I think, are a lesson for us in how capitalist economy works. Because we live in a kind of information age in which material things don't influence the economy the way they used to in the 20th century. And people really assign value to things like stocks based on their predictions of the future. And Israel is in a state of deep delusion. So it's not an information economy, it's a disinformation economy. And this is what makes it possible for this zombie economy to keep trotting along, even though it doesn't really have any life in it anymore.
He just brought up a very key point, which I think is, if you think back through history, and the most propagandized people, we take the Nazis, for example. And one of the reasons why Germany collapsed the way that it did at the end of World War II, in a way that Italy did not collapse, when you have convinced your people that they are, well, we'll just say the chosen people, much as Israel and the Israelis believe that they are, and they don't really question what is going on in their country, it's easier to see why their collapse, whether it's imminent or not, I can't say, but it is inevitable. Are there people within Israel, especially in Tel Aviv, that are attempting to push back against this? Yes, they are. But as polling data has shown repeatedly, almost 90% of Israelis agree with what's going on. When you have a population that is that delusional, that is that insane in lieu of a genocide and the dehumanization of the Palestinian people, they're heading for a cliff, and there is not an emergency brake for them to pull. They're going to go over it. Now, how much longer that's going to last, I don't know. But what I do know is that they're heading for that cliff. And boy, oh fucking boy, are they going over it. And this is a guy who is from there, who was born and raised and lived most of his life there. I don't know when he got out. He's living in Germany now. But he speaks at great length about this, and he's absolutely correct. And to the point that I'm making here, he was recently, a couple of days ago, on with Brianna Joy Gray. And here's what he had to say.
I saw a news clip on MSNBC yesterday of a woman giving talking points that were so vile and such gish gallop and such speedy back-to-back-to-back lies. And I think it was Peter Beinart who was trying to push back against them.
Well, look, whether it happens or not, frankly, the truth is Israel should have never left Gaza, because before 2005, we did not have a terrorist state. We had a booming economy. We had equality for the sexes. We didn't have gays being thrown off rooftops.
It was so overwhelming. And
what I have to say, for those of you who don't know who Brooke Goldstein is, an absolute psychopath of a Zionist. And a real nasty piece of work, too. Now, if you haven't seen her in interviews and the condescending neoliberal nature in which she views the world, which again should not come as any surprise, without question. If you really need to know how bad she is, trust me, and Brie's going to point this out, that her disdain for Palestinians, she doesn't do a very good job of hiding it.
so cruel. I had to delete a tweet. I was like, if I tweet what I really want to tweet about this woman, they're going to kick me off Twitter at best and arrest me at worst. So let me just not engage.
That's part of the problem of maybe our weakness in the left. When instead of saying Palestinians are telling us something and we believe them, we say, but even there are some Israelis who support them. And because of that way of saying, oh, look, there's also Peter Beinart, who comes from the Jewish community of the United States, who is willing to criticize what Israel is doing, instead of saying, well, let's listen to the victims, to the Palestinians first.
This is actually a great point that was made, and I know a lot of people were more heavily critical of the clip we did regarding Jon Stewart versus Peter Beinart, who, again, Jen has had issues with Peter Beinart because he is a liberal Zionist in a lot of ways, but obviously he's, to his credit, has been extremely outspoken against the genocidal state of Israel, especially over the past couple of years. With that said, you rarely, if ever, hear Palestinian voices, ever. In fact, I can't think of any circumstance where a Palestinian voice was featured on MSNBC, CNN, Comedy Central, of all places. No, they don't have a voice because, again, dehumanization. Do you really think that The View would ever have a Palestinian on to express their opinion? Probably not. They haven't done it yet. They're not going to do it now. And if they did it now, it's probably even worse because now it's exploitative. They could have done, again, we understand that some people come to the game late. That's fine. People come to the game late in the second and third inning. That happens. You come to the game late in the eighth or ninth inning, you don't get a pass. No one does. And no one should.
And because of this kind of logic, Haaretz, as a newspaper, became so much of a symbol of good journalism, which is detached from reality, unfortunately. Haaretz is actually a very liberal newspaper in the sense that it believes it will sell more copies and be more successful if it gives room for people from the left and from the right to speak and argue with each other. So you have some journalists there who are considered more pro-Palestinian and some journalists who are settlers and support the colonization of Palestine and even more. Haaretz, after October 7, dropped the leftist journalists, just dropped them.
We saw what happened. Again, time flies, but remember, it was in, I want to say that Mehdi Hassan got kicked off of MSNBC along with, it was Ali Velshi, and I forgot the other gentleman's name, but this was, I believe, just a few months or maybe a month or two into 2024 when this happened. Dissenting voices are not allowed. They're just not. And even now, we understand that MSNBC and CNN occasionally will bring on those voices. I don't know if Fox News is doing it. Frankly, I don't really care when any of them are. I can see the people who are using their platforms like Bree is using, like Katie uses, which we'll get into later this evening. But then you also have Tucker Carlson, and you also have other content creators that are using it on the political right for the right reasons. Candace Owens obviously comes to mind. To their credit. And perhaps they lose sponsorships, their opportunities dwindle away because they make that conscious decision to do the right thing. Again, human nature is a very unique animal. And in real time, we're watching this. And look, my issue, Simon, with Nick Fuentes has more to do with a lot of the things that he has said in the past. The volatile, antagonistic type of commentary. But you know what? Nick has been spot on regarding Israel-Palestine. And he broke from Trump, probably for good, as a result. There are those who will not break from Trump. I think the most pathetic of them all is Charlie Kirk. Because for them, it's all about a career. I don't have an opinion one way or the other whether the ideologue is worse than the opportunist. They both suck equally. But at least with the ideologue, at least they believe what they're saying. When you are not an ideologue and you're just saying it for exploitive purposes because you feel that that's what's best for your career, my God, you're a fucking Judas. They all are. All terrible people. Terrible people, really terrible people. So let's see what else they had to say.
They or silenced them and became part of the machine of propaganda. And became, until today, it's 2 years, almost 2 years since October 7, Haaretz never published an apology for publishing the story about the 40 beheaded babies that never existed.
Even to this day, and I hate having to bring this up because obviously he did a lot of good things to try to get people interested in politics. But Bernie Sanders makes his speech on the Senate floor about his bill to not send additional weapons to Israel, and he prefaces it with, the beheaded babies, the rapes, the murders. I mean, to me, you are aiding and abetting the genocide even further by continuing to espouse those talking points. Tell me I'm wrong, because I don't think so. I think it's really fucking bad.
And even U.S. newspapers did acknowledge that this turned out to be false.
Well,
But no,
That's what happens when you don't live in the United States. Maybe he was under the presumption that maybe some others out there got it right, but I guess it depends on what papers you're talking about. And let's not forget, we don't exactly live in a country where we have a lot of papers anymore. We have periodicals, we have online content, but in terms of actual papers that go out to people on a day-to-day basis, the most notable, of course, being the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal, I don't recall them ever apologizing or ever saying that they were wrong. They're just not. They're not going to apologize. And we know why they won't. Because in the end, it is all about money and power. As Dr. Javier has stated, as I have stated, as anybody else who has been paying attention to what our message has been since we've started doing this. Everything, anything is always connected when you're on the corporate side. And Israel is certainly the corporate side. When you are on the corporate side of politics, make no mistake, point blank, period. The only thing that matters is what gets you paid and keeps you in the club. That's it. And if that means, if anyone thought that a genocide of innocent children would be enough to get people to think twice about what they're doing, I mean, some of them have, but very, very few. Marjorie Taylor Greene comes to mind. But there's not many. They're all fine with it. If they can talk their way around it, they will. And that's the point. As you guys know, Shama Sawant is running for Congress as an independent against Adam Smith up in Washington State. I'm not saying she's definitely going to win, but the way that Adam Smith is going after her tells me that she's got a chance. And maybe politics in this country is changing, hopefully for the better. So that's what we have to count on, is that ultimately in this country, the change can happen. Guys, we have 362 viewers right now, but only 198 of you have hit that like button. So please smash it when you have a second. We'd really appreciate it. Just takes one click of the button. Kaboom. Steve is already here, so we're going to bring him in a minute. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to our Patreons. Jen, trooper that she is, already updated our Patreon. Make sure to go to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel, as you can see. Big shout out to Mike Buffton, our new $10 Patreon. Really appreciate you being a part of us, of our group, my friend. It is the Revolutionary Network, I guess you would call it. Our group is a wonderful chat and all walks of the political life, which I like. I don't want us ever to be perceived as being only one corner of the political spectrum. We believe that everyone with an honest opinion and not a corporate bought opinion is welcome here at all times. And so we'll now scroll to 10, and you will see that Mike Buffton is our new member. But we also can't neglect our super chats. We've only got 2 so far, but from one of our favorites, JG1982, thank you for the $5. In historical context, Western culture has supported genocide and supremacy for centuries. It's not abnormal in historical context. That's correct. But then we have to ask ourselves, have we modernized in any capacity? Have we evolved as a people? There's a belief that we have, and there's also a belief that it's just been modernized to some degree, but we're still the same. Take with that what you will. But if you can broadcast a genocide in real time, and nothing truly substantial has happened to change it in 2 years, it's going to happen. It's just happening very slowly. But make no mistake, there is no coming back from this, especially from anybody who participated or aided and abetted the cause. JG 1982, again with the $5. MMT is reasons for war. Without deficit spending, you couldn't pay for war, but it's zombie economics because war benefits few. I'll have to get Steve's opinion on that one. I would say that it's true in the sense that the powers that be decide where our money gets spent, which is ultimately what I think is the key issue here that no one wants to talk about. It's not a question of whether we have the money to do the things that we need to do or should be doing. It's simply a question of, do we, the people, actually have a say in how our money is spent? As far as I can tell, as of this moment, we clearly don't. And even though we are becoming more and more aware of just how broken our system really is, I think it is safe to say that until we dramatically change our circumstances, it is going to continue in earnest. And that is why nearly 2 years in, and probably 500,000 dead, and maybe several 100,000 more as a result of the famine will be dead as well. This is a genocide. It is only getting more detrimental for those that are still suffering there. And if Netanyahu plans to go through what he says he's going to go through with, which is a ground invasion, again, I don't know who you're invading. This isn't a standing army that you're going after. It's just Israel doing as they please. And we back them up because of the natural gas under their soil and the trillions in addition that will come from the real estate redevelopment as a result. So, with that said, let's do something positive for a change. Because even though if the world is going to crumble, we might as well learn how to deal with it economically if we're ever going to survive. So, with that said, you know him, you love him. He is a friend of the show and has been since day one. He is always welcome here, and what a time to have him. Steve Grumbine, welcome back to Revolutionary Change.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Love it. Appreciate it.
I figured this was something that, you know, I told you that when I saw this clip, I just thought, I'm not even going to comment on it. I'm just going to see if Steve's available because I know he's probably seen it and he's probably ready to unload. Because if you, like I said at the beginning, because you weren't here yet, we don't gossip on this channel. I don't have any time for that shit. I don't know how anybody does. If that's what you built your channel on, that's your business. But if you're going to talk about other content creators, it better be substantive. It has to be rooted in educational purposes. For somebody like Vaush to have as big a platform as he does, and he's got a big one of the biggest, especially in what is perceived to be left politics, for him to be so flippant and dismissive of MMT, like he knows what the hell he's talking about, that's a disservice as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you know, I just want to do this a little differently than normal. You know, I slept on this after we talked last night and you talked to me about doing this. You know, it became very obvious to me that people don't know what MMT is, no matter how many times I've talked about it, no matter how many times you've had me on the show, or Jordan and I have done shows, or I've done my own shows, or been on Jimmy Dore, been on The Humanist, been on Sabby Sabs. It still doesn't penetrate people's brain. They don't hear it. And so I want to try really, really hard to make this a very productive. I don't want to bash Vaush, even though I don't like Vaush. Let me just be frank. I don't care for his perspective. But I'm in no way, shape, or form coming to bash Vaush, even though he maybe deserves it based on what I saw, right? This is going to be a productive conversation as much as I can make it one, because honest to goodness, I've done so many of these. I've done 1,000+ of these type of interviews. And each time I get bundles of people that hear me and understand what I'm saying. And then they hear someone like Vaush say what he said, and they forget it. It gets flushed in one ear and out the other, right? And it's easy to understand when you're not literally walking and breathing this stuff. If this is not your world, if you're not trying to incorporate this into your political analysis, you're going to always be lost. And I don't blame people for that. I do get angry when people like Vaush, who have a platform, who I feel should be more responsible with the words they put out there. And he's clearly not been responsible. But one of the things that I found interesting about the clips that we're going to watch, he conflated political economy with modern monetary theory. And a lot of people, when they hear me talk, they have a struggle, because when I talk, I tend to speak as a leftist, because I'm a socialist. And most socialists, and I mean, I'm talking about some of the big names out there, don't understand MMT at all. They just think it's deficit spending, and worse, they say stupid shit like printing money and a lot of nonsense that just doesn't really have anything to do with MMT. And so for today, I really want to spend some time when we go through this, maybe a little bit even before we go through this, to explain that MMT is kind of like the chassis of a car. It doesn't tell you where you're going. It doesn't tell you how fast to drive, how slow to drive. It just explains the chassis of the car, right? Once you understand the chassis of the car, then you can kind of dictate what you can do with that knowledge. And now all of a sudden, it opens up a realm of possibilities, and you can analyze, and that's what the lens of modern monetary theory is a lens to analyze economic outcomes, economic activity. You can really understand the world around you once you understand the way the financial systems work. And, I think a lot of people genuinely, and Vaush clearly, and I mean, I went crazy taking down notes and stuff like that, and I'm still going to try and shoot from the hip versus rely on the notes. But I want to be clear, Vaush's problem isn't with MMT. Vaush's problem is with people and the way that they use political economy, okay? Because MMT doesn't say 99% of any of the things he said in his conversation. So I'm going to err on the side of generous, and going to presume he's just ignorant of what MMT is, didn't really understand what he was saying.
Constructive criticism.
Thought he might know, but he didn't. I'm going to give it a shot.
You'll do fine.
Again, it's going to be very challenging, brother.
Hang on tight. Here we go. Hang on tight.
But I'm going to try.
You'll do fine.
The idea of MMT runs contrary to the idea of neoliberalism because it proposes more options for the governments to do stuff and get active. Yeah, but you're doing it off of like gay money. You're doing it off fake money. I don't believe in this shit anymore, okay? There should be.
All right.
What's gay money, by the way? I never heard that expression before.
I have no idea. I think he's saying game money, not gay money. Game money, like as in monopoly money, right?
Okay.
He doesn't understand the way any of the system works. Just what he said right there tells you everything you need to know. There's only two ways of getting money into the system, period. Either you and I are going to a bank and we are borrowing money that we somehow or another have to be in debt for and pay back, okay? Or the government spends money, doesn't print money. It's so important. And money is not some social construct that people get wrapped around the axles. It is literally a creature of law. Law is what gives money its power. That's why we can tax in it, and that's why we can spend in it. And that's why debts are settled in it. Okay. And you'll realize that it's not about the US either. Russia, MMT describes the Russian monetary system completely. MMT describes the Chinese system completely. It describes the European Union completely. It describes Brazil. It describes Africa, all the nations in Africa. It describes every currency out there. It is not the definition of printing money or some other crazy thing. It literally is a lens to understand the plumbing of how these systems work, to understand the limits of spending, and to understand the cause and effect of spending. Okay. And so it's the bank's money, not the people's or government's. All right. So Brent is another person that's saying a lot of things without really knowing anything. Okay.
Here to learn, guys.
If the government decided to dismantle the Federal Reserve and take all those actions into the Treasury, it'd be the same system. It wouldn't change anything. Maybe you're not paying interest on reserves, but all it takes is a simple Google search to realize that the Fed transfers all of its earnings back to the Treasury. Okay. It keeps whatever it keeps for operating costs, but all the rest of the money transfers back. Why would it do that? Why would it transfer all of that back to the Treasury? Okay. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because there's a lot of people out there that are sucked into like libertarian rat holes with a bunch of stuff they think they know, but just ain't so.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spend a lot of time, bashing them on the head because they just throw out tropes in the midst of things. I'm also not here to defend banks, the Federal Reserve, or the people in our government. I'm not here to defend any of them. I'm here to tell you how the system works. And I want you to think about it. I almost brought a hammer with me, Peter. I almost brought a hammer in with me so I could show you that a hammer in the hands of a carpenter can build a house, but in the hands of Ted Bundy is a weapon for murder. Okay. You're not going to get rid of hammers. You're just going to make sure that the right application, the right people are using the hammer. But what if you can't change the people that are using the hammer? You certainly can't change the system if you can't change the people using the hammer. You see what I'm saying? You got to have power. And the reason why the people that are in power use the system the way that they use it and indebt us and do all these speculations and all this money pumping into the rich is because it's class war and the rich own. Exactly. I mean, the rich own the system. The rich own the system. So guess who it serves? It serves the rich.
And only them.
I mean, you don't have to be a genius. You don't even have to be an edgelord. You don't have to be a goth person with cool black makeup on and black fingernails to get this. The rich, it is pure class war. And as a socialist, a bona fide dyed-in-the-wool socialist that understands the system, though, unfortunately, part of me wishes I didn't understand it because then I could walk around with everybody else and be considered normal. But because I do understand it, I'm like this freaking whitehead on a black ass. I'm like just sticking out like a sore thumb.
I think,
and the reality is
that you have a lot of knowledge that you need to share because people still need to understand this. And the good news is that a lot of people are going to see this, and maybe more of them will learn and get on our side of thinking versus somebody like Vaush's side of thinking.
Be no investment, no speculation. Money should be temporary. There should be no quantitative easing. There should be no fractional reserve banking. Like it's all bullshit. Okay.
Stop. There is no such thing as fractional reserve banking whatsoever. Fractional reserve banking ended in 1934 when we went off the real gold standard. Okay. So Vaush, please go do a little history, do a little reading, catch up. Got about 100 years of history between your knowledge and where we're at today. It's not factual. But all the things he's saying, here's the thing. Money should be temporary. Money is temporary. Money is extremely temporary. Okay. When the government spends money into the economy, it spends new money into the economy every time, not sometimes. And it doesn't do it by funny money. It does it by law. Only when a law is passed. Now, mind you, I don't believe we can vote our way out of this. I don't believe we have a democracy. I don't believe that we can control what the political class does with these controls. Okay. I want to be crystal clear. But it is a creature of law. Okay. So when Congress goes through whatever machinations it goes through to write a bill. Okay. Now I wrote a thing explaining this in great detail. I'm not going to go through it all, but here's the way it generally works. Government writes a bill. Let's say that bill is to create new silicon chips in the United States. The United States government writes a bill. Congress passes a bill. President signs it into law. In that bill, it directs the creation of a new factory. Maybe it's nationally owned. Maybe it's the people's owned. Maybe it is guild owned by the Silicon Chip Makers Guild or whatever. That doesn't exist right now, but you get my point. It writes a law, and then it says in the law, we will create a factory. We will create the jobs to fill the factory up. We will create jobs for the scientists to work on advancing chip technology, whatever this is, right? I'm just using, it could be anything. We could make it healthcare, but I'm not going to because that's too easy. What then they do is after they write this law and they say all the things that they want done in the law, it says a budget. They come up with a budgetary amount that this bill is going to be good for, okay? And then when they have that in their hand, it goes through appropriations committees, and those funds are then conjured up into the Treasury's account with keystrokes at the Fed by law, not because we went in there and asked, hey, what's the interest rate, bank? You know, what do we don't want to go into debt for this, man. No, we wrote that into law because it is our money. It's our bank. It's a creature of law. The money existed before it was even keystroked because the law created that money. And that money then became part of the ledger when the keystrokes were entered. It's just simple accounting. I mean, super simple accounting. They say it's $10 trillion. I don't know, come up with whatever number you want. Those numbers are entered.
I'm gonna have to reel you in. We got to keep it tight. I want to keep you on this because it'll take us 3 hours to do this. If we got to stick to what he's talking about here.
But what he's talking about though is funny money. He's talking about fake money. He's talking about monopoly money. And I'm saying it's not. It's a creature of law. All money that's put into the economy from the federal government is written into law and spent by the government into the economy. That's not funny money. That's a legal entity creating a bill that would create healthcare, could create bombs, could create war machines, could create anything.
Which is why, yes, which the mistake that he's making is this belief in the austerity libertarian mindset of money, which is it's the taxpayers' money and then it goes to the government and then they decide, no, that's not how it works. Government first, then the taxpayers, and then the government decides where we do not have a say. So that's the missing piece.
So that's the missing piece. But one last thing, there's a difference between government spent money and bank credit. Okay. When he's talking about is loaning out money for crazy stuff, financialization, all this stuff, that all is political economy, has nothing to do with MMT whatsoever. Though MMT would describe that probably and say, why the hell are we doing that? Okay. Anyway, keep going.
As much money as possible should be stripped out of speculation and everything associated with it. No more gambling on the economy, okay? It would make us poorer. Poorer by what metric, man? We live in the wealthiest country in the world with productivity unrivaled in all of human history, and a lot of people struggle to buy groceries. Like the way we are.
I'm out. Real quickly. Money as a creature of the government, whether you like it or not, libertarian friends. This is how it is today, whether you like that or not, whether you want privatized money because you want to strip the government of any power, which should be, it's not, but should be we the people, right? That's what the government should be, we the people. So all this speculation stuff is an ideological capitalist approach to economics. This is what they do. It's not what you would do if you were in control of the government, but you're not. And I'm not, and we are not, okay? So when you understand that everything he is complaining about has absolutely nothing to do with MMT. In fact, even the biggest, multimillionaire guy in MMT, Warren Mosler, would say that let's get rid of the fire sector. What the hell do we need with finance, insurance, et cetera? real estate. We can get rid of all the speculators. He would say, get rid of the spec. Fine. I agree with you. Let's stop selling bonds. Yes. The government, which serves capital, wants us in debt because we are controllable. We won't revolt. We will be trapped because we're afraid to do anything. So yes, when a capitalist runs your government and runs your monetary system, you get capitalist outcomes. Imagine that. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah.
Keep going.
Our measuring wealth is clearly not reflective of people's needs and wants. It's all bullshit. It's all floating up here. I don't care how gay the money is. The important thing is the stuff getting done. That's what counts. No, that's not what counts, actually. I'm not interested in stuff getting done through an infinite chain of public-private partnerships where the government prints $1 trillion to give to Enron or construction companies. Everything always floats to the top.
You hear this repeatedly over and over, and I won't make you stop, because if people can understand that what he's saying right now is repeatedly bashing, rightfully so. Like, I am right there with him, except he moronically believes that it's MMT saying to do this stuff, or this is MMT, or this is MMT is not saying any of that. Okay. No. MMT is literally saying that, why would we have public-private partnerships? Because a capitalist wants public-private partnerships. The government, if it chose right here, right now, if we were socialists and we decided we could literally nationalize everything and get rid of the private sector altogether, to my great joy and happiness. But that, again, has nothing to do with MMT. Nothing whatsoever to do with MMT. And I think people need to really, really understand that there's two things. I have people on my own team that can't quite get it through their heads that MMT is the base case. The political overlay is socialism, capitalism, eco-socialism, whatever you call it, ism. All those isms ride over that system. And that system produces whatever the ism is at the top that's pushing it. And right now, the people that control our government and control every aspect of our lives are capitalists that are financially destroying all of us. But that is not MMT. MMT can show us how to undo that. Now, mind you, if we had the ability to vote our way out of this, which we do not have the ability to vote our way out. So these are contradictory terms.
Yeah, but you got to be in the streets. Most people don't want to do that because that's requires risk.
Meanwhile, people at the bottom subsist on nothing, No. The speculation as a concept has to go. Just ban speculative markets? God, I wish. I disagree. How would that even work? How would what even work? What's the difference between speculation and investments? Whether or not you're gambling on a return, I suppose? We can get rid of investment too if you want. Not really an MMT guy, but MMTs view taxation as a way to destroy money. No. I'm aware of the theory here. The problem is, at the end of the day, that MMT is still biting the bullet on, it's literally called modern monetary theory. I hate the modern economy. Like,
Time out. Michael Hudson takes MMT back to Mesopotamia. Modern being a relative term, not the last 15 minutes. Okay? Not the last 15 minutes. Goes back to credit tables on tablets, stone tablets, credit. It goes back to tally sticks, wampum. It goes back to putting little notches on a piece of stick. It goes back to all kinds of shells, you name it. Money is just a form of transfer. It's the ability to settle debt, okay? But without having a kind of authority to kind of maintain that this is the settlement agreement, so somebody can't change the rules in terms of clearing your debt. These debts are payable in US dollars, which the government, which should be serving us, is the creator of. Even when it comes to banks lending money out, those banks have charters from the governments, period. It's that simple. If the government decided to pull their charters, they would cease to function as they do today. And that's the deal. That's the thing. We get it all backwards. We think the banks are over the government. It's the government that's over the banks. The problem is it doesn't look like it, does it? It looks like the banks rule the world. And they do by default because the governments are captured in capitalist bullshit. Okay. So these are defining political economy things that he's talking about repeatedly over and over and over again. It is not in any way, shape, or form, not MMT though. Okay. And what he's describing as, bullshit, it doesn't this and that and the other. He just doesn't know what the hell he's talking about for real. And I mean, no disrespect to him at all. I mean, I agree with almost all the things that he doesn't want in this world. He's just misattributing it to MMT. And that's where it goes wrong. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Continues the cycle of we print more money and we loan it out at incredibly low costs so that it's more profitable to take that money that you've borrowed and reinvest it than it is to actually make anything. We need to make the economy and robustness within the economy operate at a ground level again, a human level again, with money that actually transfers between people. It moves between people, That's what we need. Were we doomed as soon as we came off the gold standard? No, it has.
He's almost there.
He's almost there, man. Here we go with this whole thing, right? When he sits there and says money should be, usable for things, important things at the ground level, I don't disagree with him. But when you spend money into Halliburton, this is the definition of trickle-down economics, right? You spend money at Halliburton, the oligarchs that own Halliburton and run Halliburton, then in turn hire people, they give them wages and shit, and they step on it like a crack dealer, and they just drink, the money just trickles down little by little by little bit. Okay. If we were to go ahead, for example, and this would blow everyone's mind because they wouldn't know what to do with themselves, if they had a job guarantee that prevented the capitalist class from using a UBI to price gouge and to jack shit up and to do all the things that we've noticed through Isabella Weber's very, very good work to show about sellers inflation. If instead we provided a job guarantee where people serve their local communities and stuff like that, the very thing he is saying could come to pass. Instead of seeing it be spent up at the rich top and leave it trickle down to us where we don't get any and we're desperate and so forth, if we spend it down at the bottom, money always rises. And then all of a sudden, we could do something about ensuring that there wasn't that extreme capture at the top, that accumulation that occurs within the capitalist class. But that is another story altogether. You've got to have people that are in office, and I'll say it until the cows come home. We cannot vote our way there. Okay, so all these pie in the sky dreams of what should be and shouldn't be, you've got to have power. You've got to have the ability and willingness to fight a class war. You've got to be willing to do that, to make any of these changes that he wants to have done. That doesn't change MMT. MMT is still rock solid, just sitting there twiddling its thumbs, waiting for him to figure it out. Okay. But the reality is that what he's saying, I don't disagree with. He's just misattributing it once again. He's a full cup runneth over, no new information penetrating. Okay. Because he thinks he knows what he's talking about. He's probably got 50,000 people watch, 100,000 people watch, and he's misled 100,000 people because they all think that's what MMT is, that they're printing money. I told you how governments work. They spend that money into existence. They don't print it. It always is this way. Every time, folks. Not sometimes, not if you like it or if you dislike it, all the time. And when they tax it out of existence. It's like a circuit, okay? The government does this every time. The government doesn't need its coupons and taxes. It doesn't need any of that stuff. We need the government's money.
Why do you
unless we want to go to a bank and borrow? What's that?
Why do you think new dollar bills get printed all the time? It's because those are new bills being put into circulation, removing old bills that make it back to the Fed, and that's it. It's real. Honestly, it's not as complicated as people think it is. They make it very complicated because not everybody's very, very small percentage of our country is truly affluent in economics and truly understands it. And I want you to take this. But that's on purpose.
Yes. Take it a step further, though. The actual physical dollars that we see are so minuscule in circulation. They have them for ATM
Hold that thought
and
for a
teller
minute. I think
transactions.
this is a good question by Dubs. So what is the government debt? So for example, Steve, when you say, and listen, you know I like Thomas Massey. He's the only honest operator because he truly believes in that form of politics. You get these other nincompoops that don't know jack shit about it. But when you see the guys out there saying we're 37 trillion in government debt, why is that a lie?
All right. So double entry accounting. If you're doing double entry accounting, you have an asset and you have a liability. Always, right? Always. Accounting is like science. It is the one thing. It's scientific. That's why they have these freaking forensic accountants. I mean, it is true science. You can follow the ledger, okay? Assets and liabilities, always. When the government creates money and spends it into existence, that is the government's liability. Because what it's saying is that I will accept $1 to pay $1 in tax, okay? We, in turn, pay the tax. Why? Because the tax is what maintains the monopoly power of the nation's unit of account. Happens, by the way, in China. Happens that way in Russia with the ruble. Happens that way in Australia. Happens that way in European Union. It happens everywhere the same exact way. Okay. And so what they do is they're tallying up every untaxed dollar in existence. And that represents every government spent untaxed dollar represents the national debt to the penny. Okay. To the penny. And what happens is that people, when they get this money, in order to buy a treasury bond, that's right, banks cannot lend reserves out to bank. There's somebody that knows their shit right there. Anyway, with that in mind, okay, people buy bonds with US dollars, existing US dollars, not some funny money. They buy them with US dollars. And back in the day, this was used like during World War II. They sold treasury bonds, they sold war bonds, okay, to try to get people to delay purchasing power so that the government could keep all of its resources ago to pump up the military machine.
Exactly.
To make the country be able to build the tanks and planes and bombs and all the other shit we needed during World War II.
But there's
and
the
Vietnam.
one. But there's the one thing about war: you better win. Because if you don't win, then you see what happens to other countries around the world. But I digress. We'll continue.
Yeah, I mean, we can get deeper into like, you know, Weimar Republic because there's always somebody out there who wants to hear that. But we want to deal with Vaush, right? So in this particular case, though, I think it's really super important to understand that everything that he's talking about right now, every last thing he's talking about is political economy. Nothing to do, not 1 ounce of having anything to do with MMT. Go ahead.
Amen.
It has nothing to do with the gold standard or fiat currency or anything. This problem was even back during the Great Depression happened under the gold standard. When was the last time the economy was good? It's never been good. When has there been socialism? In the 1950s in America, rampant speculation and like top level fake money circulation hadn't propagated to the point where it had completely stripped us of our real economy, our real economic activity. What about the East India Trading Company? Was that speculation? What the fuck are you talking about? Of course people speculated on the East India Trading Company. People have been speculating on business ventures for thousands of years. What are you talking about? What do you mean? Was the company was No, the company wasn't speculation. The company was a company. Well, I was kidding. Yeah, me too. I love that every time Vaush mentions that infinite credit economy is bad, it devolves into this. It's genuinely amusing. Remember the last time we had this conversation and there were people in chat who were astonished by the fact that a huge number of Europeans don't even have credit cards? Over here in America, you have to get a credit card.
Stop. In Europe, people don't have credit cards, whatever, okay? Guess what that is? That's a political decision. The European countries all have robust safety nets, not just safety nets, robust citizens benefits. Okay. So people don't need to take out a credit card to pay for their doctor visit. They don't need to take out a credit card for travel back and forth on the subway. They don't need to take a credit card out for whatever. And the way the countries are done, they literally still have some of the old vestiges of old socialist thinking that all those countries had at one point in time. Okay. The problem is, and this is what's happening to both the UK and most of Europe, the United States neoliberal strain has vassalized all these countries. We have turned them into vassals of the United States. We are exporting neoliberalism at a rate that's alarming to even them. And they're watching their national health service be gutted and privatized, all in the name of efficiency, all in the name of making some rich fuck some money. Okay. So what he's talking about is the very essence of what I'm saying. He doesn't understand it, though. If a government spends on the people, new money on the people, having fuck all to do with banks, okay? If they spend the money on the people, meaning now all of a sudden I have universal basic services, what would that do to my life? How much debt would I need to take on if I didn't have to worry about my health care, if I didn't have to worry about my dental care, if I didn't have to worry about housing or food, if I didn't have to worry about those things and they were part of a service? I didn't have to worry about paying for college education that it was
very good
provided.
Point, very good point. And this is one thing about the Europeans that I don't think gets talked about enough. We talk about how fat our country is, especially compared to Europe. In Europe, especially Western and Northern Europe, maybe not so much Western, but really the northern part of Europe in particular, where they have these universal services, especially education, healthcare, and a living wage. Why is that different than what we have here in the United States? One of the biggest problems we have in the United States, not just that our food is substantially less healthy than it is over there, but there's also a lot of stress eating here in the United States. People do that constantly when they have to worry about, am I going to have enough money to do this? Or I have to eat cheap shit because I can't afford anything else. You live over in Europe, it's not a problem the way that it is here. That's not to say that Europe doesn't have problems, but compared to us, they're living the fucking dream over there.
Yes. Yes. Nailed it, Pete. That's spot on. I mean, this is the point. That is a political decision. And let me tell you what really, really screwed Europe up almost as bad as the US vassalizing them. By them all giving up their currency and going on the euro, they lost the ability to print money, right? To spend as much as they need to satisfy the needs of their people. They basically turned themselves into Texas and Delaware and Maryland and Florida instead of being countries that have their own, the Greek, yeah. I mean, they gave up their currency to be on the euro because people didn't understand what monetary sovereignty was. They didn't understand MMT. They thought it'd be a great idea. Now all of them are controlled by a central authority, not in their country, the European Central Bank, the ECB, the Troika, okay? And so now you're watching austerity measures throughout Europe. Now, one thing that's been very interesting, Europe, because the United States has pulled back some of its quote-unquote military support, has decided that it is going to ramp up military purchases and do away with its deficit rules. Again, these are all just rules, man. They could be changed in a moment's notice, and they did. They just, let's go ahead and make it wide open to buy military stuff. Now, who do you think is going to win out now that Europe is suddenly going to have to build out its military? Do you think it might be Boeing and all these other companies, these massive companies that are suddenly going to be, hey, step right up. We've got planes, we got bombs, we got tanks. It's dealer's choice, right? This is
it's all the same. And again, one of my biggest criticisms about Vaush is that he is so blindly in love with Ukraine and so blindly hateful of Russia without actually looking at the logistical component to it, especially with the MIC and how it's all about money and power. Everything is about money and power. The reason why we don't use MMT is because the people who have the power don't want the people to have it. It's that simple. So, as you said, can't vote your way out of this. You have to work collectively as a working class. Dare I say, revolutionary change is the only way we're getting out of this.
That's
It's the
right.
truth.
It is. Let me just say this, though. There is no such thing as having or using MMT. MMT is there whether they think they're using it or not. MMT describes the bad moves as well as the good moves. It is truly a lens to understand the economy. Deficit spending is my political economy. I'm saying to you, we should spend on the people. I'm telling you that we should stop funding rich people with bonds. We could stop selling bonds tomorrow if we wanted to. Okay, we could literally stop doing that, but why don't we? Because people love having a very, very safe place to save their money and earn a nominal interest.
Hence
That
why,
right there.
hence why people put their money under a bed. And that's, again, there's a lot to that which hasn't changed over the years. It's different now. That's why people think Bitcoin's a solution. We'll keep going.
Because it's the only way to build credit, so banks will loan you out enough money to get a mortgage or a car payment. But like in Europe, a lot of them just don't even have credit cards. In America, it's like, no, you have to get the credit card and you have to buy everything off the credit card. And the credit card company is hoping that you don't pay it off at the end of the month because they make their money off the interest off of your debt. But if you do pay it off every month, they get mad at you. The MMT essays. You can absolutely do that with MMT. It's not a monolith. MMTers want more money exchange to base the economy. Red Cascadian, you're not following, okay? There is no way around the fact that I hate speculation and borrowing money to invest money. I don't like investment in general.
Stop. He thinks that the United States government is borrowing money. See, this is why Vaush doesn't know his ass from his elbow. And I don't mean that. Yeah, I guess I do mean a little harsh, but I mean, he's putting it out there. A dude is bloviating, right? I mean, he's popping off, man. Like he's holding court. And he's, I like agree with so much of what he says, but he's so fucking full of himself that he misses the most important points. Everything that he's talking about is the political economy, the choices we make that we don't get a say in because we don't have a fucking democracy. Gillens and Page, 2014 Princeton study, black and white, fucking empirical shit, man. Read your Howard Zinn. We don't live in a democracy. So the idea that you're voting your way out of this, Bernie's going to fight the oligarchy, blah, blah, blah. Grow up, Peter Pan, Count Chocula. It isn't changing. He isn't challenging the system in any way, shape, or form. The system itself, the underlying MMT base, isn't our issue. It isn't our problem. What is our problem is capture. It is absolutely understanding capitalism and the war, the literal class war that we're in. So all of what he is saying right now, he wants to get rid of speculation, wants to get rid of, hey man, I'm there, buddy. How are we going to do it? You're going to vote your way there? No, you and I are going to have to get out in the streets. We're going to have to organize. It's not just get in the streets. Let me be clear. We'll run face first into a howitzer and get our face blown off by the largest military, largest police force, you name it, in the world. Okay. We are up against incredible, horrible odds. So this right here is important, that we've got to strategize. We have got to collaborate. We have got to organize. I've said we've got to build mass network from coast to coast, mutual aid, hostels for people to stay in. People, you never will see a strike for any company where the union has not properly put away money and funds and protections for the workers, where they will stay on strike until they get a good deal, because you will have strike breakers, scabs immediately, because people are going to do what they have to do to survive. So you've got to have these things in place to really, really, really fight back. And nobody's taking it seriously because everybody wants the easier, softer way of hoping that Bernie Sanders will go ahead and kill the oligarchy and end capitalism with a few good people like AOC. Whatever, man. Whatever, dude. I can't even hear him anymore, man. He's so full of it, right? So with that in mind, I just want to say point blank, nothing Vaush said whatsoever has anything to do whatsoever with MMT.
Yeah, crossing over into certain areas of discussion, which I think he was correct about, but again, equating it in the wrong ways. And then there were a number of things that he pointed out, particularly about how the government actually operates, in which he's absolutely incorrect.
Absolutely
that
incorrect.
is, once again, there are those people out there that are so sure that the way that the economy really works is that we are taxed and then the government appropriates those funds. When they say it's our taxpayer dollars, no, it's the powers that be that decide how money is spent, and we, the people, have no say. If we, the people, did have a say, as polling has indicated, we would have universal health care, we would have universal education, we would have a living wage, we'd have clean water, we would not have endless war. There's a lot of things that would change dramatically overnight. You can't vote your way out of this because, as we have seen, as we saw at the top of the live stream this evening, whether it's $10,000 or $1 million, it's very easy for the Israel lobby alone to buy off our Congress. You know how hard it is to get one person in there, and you're up against 534 other ones that they're just. I'm telling you guys, this is part of the reason why I say the Democrats are worse than the Republicans, because you take these average workers and you stick them in that life, they will move. They'll throw their own mother. Throw mama from the train. They'll throw their own mama from the train in order to stay in that position. It's more luxurious than you can possibly imagine. And that's just for people who are honest. Imagine if you go there and you think, well, maybe I could get rich doing this. Do a little insider trading here, make this trip over to Israel there. Who knows how many different insider trading secrets I can grab. For them, that's the exploitation of the worst kind. So if we're going to get our way out, if we're going to get out of this, it's only going to happen with the knowledge that is necessary. Now, I know some of this is jumbled, but we're going to clip it. We're going to try to make it as understandable as possible. I'm hoping Vaush sees this. I think the two of them having a debate together would be very helpful. That type of a conversation is about living and learning, because that's really what it's about. But the key ingredient here, more than anything else, for anyone who needs to understand what modern monetary theory is, the government prints money. The government creates money,
Government spends it into existence. That's literally how it does it.
Spends it into existence. We get a little bit of it, and we get taxed. But today,
and it gets destroyed. When the taxes come in, it gets destroyed. Spent into existence. Hey, I'm alive. And it's taxed out. Oh, I'm dead. That's literally the chain. That's literally how it works.
And then you're reincarnated as a better looking $100 bill than it was a few years ago. That's about it. Guys, links are in the description. Steve, we love you. We always appreciate you coming on Saturday night. It's getting a little late. Don't want to keep you too long, but this was very insightful. Learn MMT, guys, if you haven't already. It's not that you are learning a new theory. It's you're learning the theory about money. We all need to know it.
That's right.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, man. Talk to y'all later. Have a great night, everybody.
You too, man. Always one of our favorites, and always great to have him here, and always great to see you guys here. And it does look like things picked up a little bit on the super chat side while we had our conversation. So once again, make sure that you do go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. And we're doing everything we can to clear those next rungs on the ladder. We're consistently in the 300 to 350 live stream viewer range, which is great. And we can attribute that to our amazing chat and those that are here this evening. And of course, we want to give a shout out to our super chatters. Gabriel P. with the $5 super sticker. Thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Alcas, thank you so much for the $1.99. Taxation without representation. No more of this. Hey, listen, you're preaching to the choir, my friend. Can't scream that from the rooftops enough. We are taxed, and we really have no say at all in how our money is appropriated as a result. Saeed M., thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate you being here, my friend. Obviously, every dollar counts, and we are always grateful for every new member that joins. Of course, JG1982, always a pleasure. Thank you for the $5. Trickle-down economics is the rich pissing on your head and tell you it's raining. I could not agree more, and that's actually a very nice way of putting it. It could certainly be leveled a lot more effectively in an even more grotesque form, if you know what I mean. Teresa, thank you so much for gifting 5 Revolutionary Change memberships. No matter what that says, it's just remnants of the old channel. But thank you so much for gifting 5 Revolutionary Change memberships. It is tremendously appreciated. As we said, every dollar counts, but every opportunity we get to have new members get on board, perhaps stick around for a while if you like what you see, any support is tremendously appreciated. And of course, Piano Man, great to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. And so as we move along this evening, we do have a few more stories to get to. Obviously, you know what the big one is, and we're going to get to it shortly. I really do. Thank you, Phil. Thank you very much. Make sure that you do hit that like button if you haven't. Make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you share the stream. We want to get this out there, as I mentioned, to as many people as we can. So let's continue to do that. And as the night goes along, we've got a lot more to cover. But with that said, we do have a very big story that obviously I know a lot of you have been paying attention to. I have as well. Katie Halper is not only an amazing content creator, but she's also a friend and somebody who I think very highly of. She has used her platform for good. Somebody who, much like Jen, has been a very outspoken, proud Jewish person who, under no circumstances, allows for the equating of Judaism and Zionism. And she has been a frequent guest, not just on Piers Morgan, but a lot of other channels, and has shared her sentiments about that. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Shabbos Kessenbaum, as unfortunately many of us are, he's just one of what I would consider Ben Shapiro disciples, I guess, because they're all the same. They conduct themselves the same way. These emasculated men who talk a big game and want everybody else to do the dirty work for them. Surprised he probably doesn't have any butlers. Maybe he does. But he's another one of those Ayal Jacobi bitches that scream from the top of the roof that they are scared and their feelings are hurt because a lot of anti-Jewish sentiment has sprung up as a result of Israel's actions against the Palestinian people. And he has been granted a substantially large platform for a very long time. But he's always full of shit, and he doesn't properly get called out for the bullshit that he espouses without any real pushback. Well, Katie made sure that when she confronted him on Piers Morgan, that she made it count.
Consistently lies, and Israel's defenders consistently lie because they don't have the facts on the ground, and they certainly don't have the moral argument. This is a very inhumane and unjust and immoral and illegal genocide. And that's not just me saying that. That's countless genocide experts. That's, Zionists who have been saying that. The Israeli Jewish Human Rights Organization, B'Tselem, says it's a genocide. Physicians for Human Rights says it's a genocide. All of these Israeli organizations say it's a genocide. And Shabbos, I just watched the panel with you, and you lied through your teeth the entire time. You even said, fact check me. Pierce asked you if the proportion of children killed was higher in Gaza than it was in other wars. And you said that it was as high in other wars. And you named the Syrian Civil War, Vietnam, and Korea. Unfortunately, the stats don't back you up. And the proportion of children killed in all of those wars was lower. I can go over the stats with you, but was lower than the proportion of children killed in Gaza.
Have you ever seen a more petulant child? His body language screams, I don't have to take this. I don't have to listen to this. I know what I know, and I'm right. You know why? Because my mommy and daddy told me I'm right. He's a sawed-off little prick. He has never properly had his ass kicked. That's why he acts that way. Lives in a very insulated environment. I mean, for God's sake, the guy's name is Shabbos. The only way you could get away with a name like that, and it ain't good Shabbos, it's bad Shabbos, if you get the reference. He is the embodiment of all of those type of, as I mentioned, emasculated angry, resentful, sort of effeminate men that want to prove how tough they are by how intellectually strong they perceive themselves to be. And that's not even getting into the Zionist ethnic, cultural, religious, and social superiority complex that runs through their veins. Jen has pointed out time and again, now listen, I'm pretty white, but I'm not as white as him. I'm not allergic to the sun. And even though this is a person who insists that he is native to Israel, this is a person who clearly could not survive in the desert, especially if he's out in the sun too often. Let's just be real. But as you can see, he's a very unhappy little boy right now because his real mommy, who is owning his ass, is teaching him a lesson that his biological mommy never taught him about the tenements of Judaism instead of Zionism.
So we have an active genocide going on. It is actually illegal for the United States to support this genocide. It violates the Leahy Law. It violates the Foreign Assistance Act. It is a threat to every living person. I don't speak out because this has a dangerous effect on Jews. It does have a dangerous effect on Jews. I speak out because I believe that Palestinians are human beings with human rights. I also speak out because Israel doesn't get to speak for all Jews. But the irony is that for all the people like you who talk about Jewish safety, you are making Jews less safe. Israel is making Jews less safe. AIPAC is making Jews less safe. The ADL is making Jews less safe. And you're engaging in the anti-Semitic trope of equating Jewishness with Zionism.
The one thing I'm surprised at is that I didn't watch the entire interview. I am going to guess that he was constantly cutting her off and Piers told him, knock it off or I'm kicking you off. So that's why he's sitting there and taking it. And boy, was she ready. She knew exactly how she was going to nail his ass to the wall. And keep in mind, guys, this isn't about Katie nailing Shabbos to the wall. This is about nailing all Zionists to the wall. This is a true Jew, if there ever was. She's a mensch. To me, if I ever learned a Yiddish word in my life that I like more than any other, it's mensch. And if you don't know what that is, it means a good person. Katie Halper is a good person who uses her platform for absolute good.
Every time that you claim that all Jews have to be Zionists or that it's anti-Semitic to be anti-Zionist, you are leaning into that dual loyalty trope, which claims that all Jews are a monolith and we all support Israel. And again, when you're live streaming a genocide that the entire world sees and you're saying that this is for the sake of Jews, I don't know how that's good for the Jews.
There's no deliberate policy of starvation when it comes to Israel's policy vis-a-vis aid into Gaza.
If you guys remember this guy's name, I don't remember it. Obviously, I know the entire panel except for this gentleman. If anybody has this guy's name, again, you got Peter Beinhardt on the end. You got Katie in the middle, Shabbos left, Piers all the way to the left. Whoever this probably Israeli guy who is talking square out of his ass, saying that there is no starvation. So sticking with the Netanyahu talking point that, no, we're not really doing it. And even if we are, it's Hamas's fault that they're not getting their food. And Katie's eyes just go pop, as I would imagine everybody else's would as well. I know mine did. I can't imagine why somebody would bullshit their way through something like this. But hey, he looks like he's doing all right for himself financially. Heck, as we said, a lot of people are willing to lie if they're going to get paid, no matter how grotesque it is.
We can argue about.
Well, there was a blockade for 3 months. I mean, that's a deliberate policy of starvation.
I mean, like I said, if Piers Morgan, who, as we have shown in clips, was fully on board with Israel maybe a year ago, but has evolved and is now calling you out. I mean, if you're getting owned by Piers, man, just pack up your fucking tents and just go home because you're just lost.
And they said they were going to let in no food. They said it out loud. That's why genocide scholars.
Literally, that's the epitome.
Israel was trying to apply pressure onto Hamas which obviously
by starving the civilian
if you'll
population,
let
that's a
me
war
finish
crime.
saying what I need to say, then
it
maybe
is
you
a
can
war
have a
crime.
word
It's
next.
terrorism. Okay.
Okay. Now, when Israel reopened the aid, they had set up the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation system, in order to prevent Hamas from receiving that aid or stealing that aid. And we know that it was successful because one of Hamas's key demands in the negotiations over a ceasefire was that GHF be dismantled. Why would they want GHF to be dismantled? It's another method for bringing aid into Gaza. If they really care about aid in Gaza, why do they want
How
one
many
of the
people
methods
have been
dismantled?
How many
The
people
reason
have been
is-
killed trying to get food from GHF? How many people have been shot and
I
killed?
don't know how many people have been, and how do you know how many people have been killed?
We know that over 1,000 people have been killed as they are in these big lines trying to get food, right?
1,000 people, 1,000 people, just mostly women and children, have been assassinated by the IDF seeking food. I don't know how many people. Who cares? But what if 1,000 Israelis were assassinated? They would use the full weight of their media machine to convince the entire world that they must bow at the altar of Israel and the Zionist movement. As we said, it's a genocidal cult, and we must sever ties with them forever. And the more these types of clips appear, and the more that people like Katie expose these individuals the way that she does. Guys, does anyone in the chat know the name of this guy? Please, somebody has to know. We've got over 300 people here. Please tell me someone knows this guy's name. But credit where credit is due. On the one hand, Katie talks it, and then Katie allows them to hang themselves politically. Maybe not the other way, but it is what it is.
My question for you is, how many have Israel killed of the 1,000 plus who've died?
I don't know how many were killed by Israel. I don't know how many were killed by Hamas. But there is documented evidence of Palestinians in Gaza saying that Hamas was shooting at them. And Israel has acknowledged shooting to keep people away. I don't know if you've seen some of these videos, but you've got groups of a handful of soldiers, and you've got thousands of people coming at them. That puts them in danger, in a clear danger. And they're shooting warning shots. They're shooting at their legs. How many were killed by
Maybe
Israeli
they should
soldiers?
have more than 4 distribution sites. Maybe they should.
The idea that you're going to suggest that these shooters were shooting at the feet of people that they assassinated. How fucking bad of a shot do you have to be to end up hitting them in the head or in the torso and killing them? The most moral army in the world. The most efficient. Thank you, Dubs. Shout out to Dubs. And I love that profile pic. Benjamin Mollahan. So that's who this douchebag is. Or as Jean-Claude says, Benjamin. It's Benjamin Mollahan. Thank you, Jean-Claude. Why are you shooting at all? It's pathetic.
Should have more than 4 distribution sites. You don't think that's a trap?
It takes a while
for,
to set up a distribution
safety?
site. I don't know how easy it is for you sitting in the chair wherever you're sitting in the United States to set up a distribution site.
Well, then
but it's
maybe
not
they should have
easy to do.
used established distribution instead of an
There was
organization
aid
that
continued.
has
Aid
no
has-
experience. And that why did the person resign before it started? Why did the guy who was supposed to
You're
be the head
just
of it
throwing out
resign?
questions that have absolutely nothing to do with the topic at hand. Israel has
No, it
continued
has everything to do with
aid
it.
into Gaza. Hamas is stealing from the UN, is stealing from the other international aid groups, but not from GHF, which is why Hamas wants GHF dismantled.
No, 2 Israeli officials
Benjamin,
have admitted that
Benjamin,
there's
let me
no
ask
evidence
Benjamin-
of
let me ask
Hamas
Benjamin-
doing that, by the way. And 170
let me ask Benjamin.
NGOs and aid organizations have said the GHF needs to be dismantled. What's their ulterior
Yeah,
motive?
I think it's been a complete shambles. But Benjamin, do you believe that any Palestinian children are severely hungry?
It would appear to be the case, yes. I see the same image as you do, and it's heartbreaking. But we have to ask ourselves, who's at fault for that?
Israel.
Who?
Israel. And that's it. Israel. No one else. It's not Hamas. It is partially us. But in the end, this is Israel. This is not Netanyahu. This is not Gavir. This is a genocidal apartheid state that needs to be lanced like a boil, as Jen has said repeatedly. And when spokespeople like Katie, who is a New York Jew through and through, and does not take any of this shit, and can really call these guys out, and talk about holding her own amongst 4 other men. She dominated this panel, dominated it. The pissant look on Shabbos's face. I think he's just stunned. Like he didn't know what to say. Because he knows that if he comes for Katie, he's going to get boxed into a corner with an uppercut and a hook, and he's out for the count. I have been following Katie. I've known Katie. I've known Katie for I've known Katie for over 8 years. And she has always used her platform to spotlight the most important people fighting on the front lines of the most important issues. I just love the way she handles herself. She does a fan-fucking-tastic job. As good as anybody. And not just what I would consider left politics. She's just good at politics, period. She's as honest as the day is long. And I wish there were more people like her. I'll tell you this much. I highly doubt that there is another Zionist stupid enough, although they are pretty stupid, so it's not like it's not possible. But I would be very surprised if there is another Zionist stupid enough to sit on a panel with her and know exactly what's coming their way if they even attempt to get in her way. Shabbos can't talk, and Benjamin doesn't even know how to talk. Trips over his own words because he knows that when he fucks up, Katie is going to yank the rug out from under him and he's going to fall and split his head, which is exactly what happened. Oh, you're okay with them shooting these innocent people that, You could tell they're back on their heels saying, I don't know if she prepared for this, if she prepped in any way. And yes, man, with Shabbos is a well-paid member of Prager University. Didn't the Trump administration I know Dennis Prager has tried to make his university an official university for the longest time. But wasn't there an attempt to legitimize Prager University as a real university? I mean, totally, if you can make Trump University a university, you could totally make it for Prager U too. They get a lot of money, just like all the other universities. Although I will say that you have there's a lot of commonality between the type of money that some of these schools get and then comparatively speaking to what a fake university is ultimately able to get. I just hope that at some point, these guys are not going to be able to find any jobs. Who the hell would hire them? They've put themselves out there for the entire world to see. Shabbos, Benjamin. As we've mentioned before, Peter Beinhardt, who does not have anything, does not talk in this particular clip, but despite the fact that he had been or has been a liberal Zionist for many years, he has been very outspoken about the genocide in Gaza and has been from pretty much the very beginning. So credit to him where it's due. There are those who do evolve in the right way. But then there are those who don't. Bravo, Katie. We love you. Ayel Jacobi is somebody who absolutely should be booted because he incites violence. Remember where free speech ends and criminal behavior begins. But remember, what a lot of people don't know about Ayel Jacobi is his father. His father is a tenured professor at Rutgers, and he is from Israel, and he was raised in $1 million home in Princeton, New Jersey. He's a spoiled little shitbag who now gets paid by the Israel lobby to spew bullshit online. And when somebody like Ryan Grimm, who is the most mild-mannered man I think I've ever spoken to in politics, says that you have the worst account on all of Twitter, you know you are a real piece of shit. Because that's what he said. He said that the worst account on all of social media is Ayel Jacobi. The worst. And I am inclined to agree. I think he is the worst. And I think it is also very important that we do not forget, in many ways, how we get where we get. Now, we talk about the good part of politics. You know, Zoran certainly has been doing a great job running for mayor of New York, and Katie does support him. But let's also talk about the bad side of politics, because as we know, the worst part about what Zoran is doing right now is running for mayor of New York City in the Democratic Party. And with that comes the expectations of certain groups, special interests within the Democratic Party that are expecting you to do very specific things. But as we've stated before, the worst aspect of politics is the consultant industrial complex, and nowhere is it worse than in the Democratic Party, especially the corporate liberal wing of the party, which makes up a substantial portion of the party. Do you know that there has been a recent presidential poll for 2028? And do you know who the top candidate is for president amongst registered Democratic voters? Pete Buttigieg. That's who's number one. There was a story recently that brought up the fact that these NGOs, consultant groups, when you get email solicitations, especially if you've ever donated to a Democratic candidate, and I have, little do we actually know where a lot of this money is actually going. Well, it turns out that maybe the worst offenders of them all is a group called Mothership Strategies. Now, on the surface, they say Democrats shunned a top firm over its controversial fundraising practices. It hasn't gone away. Really? If the Democratic Party was so offended and felt that the behavior, the conduct of Mothership Strategies was so abhorrent that it cast a negative light, an erasable blemish on the Democratic Party, that they would send a cease and desist to this organization to get them to stop fundraising in their name. The millions upon millions of dollars that this organization has raised. Who was the one that came up with the mother load of bad ideas, or mothership of bad ideas? This organization, and if you could scroll down, Colin, just slightly, we could see these three guys there. No, scroll up. These three guys, these three preppy bitches who run this organization, Although I will say that this guy has a Lulu-looking dog. We all love dogs. Dogs are exceptions to the rule. But if you scroll down, I want everyone to know who these guys are. I want you to know their names. You've got Jake Lipstedt. He's the guy on the left. Greg Berlin. He's in the middle. And then Charles Starnes. He's the one who's sitting. So what do we have here? We've got Ivy-educated preppy boys from affluent stock, figured out how to make a lot more money. As it turns out, scroll down, it has been brought to my attention that Colin, are you there? Thank you. These guys have raised millions upon millions of dollars. And of those millions that they have raised off the backs of the Democratic Party donor, 96% of that money that is raised, they pocket. And only 4% goes to helping candidates. So this is a throwback. This is from 2018. This isn't from yesterday. This is an organization that has been around the block in DC for quite a while and has raised tens of millions of dollars for basically strictly for the purpose of profit. And the Democratic Party claims that they don't want anything to do with them. That's bullshit. They clearly do. Where do you think they go with that 96% of the money that they pocket? They go and grease the wheels of the Neera Tandons of Center for American Progress of the world. They sponsor the most important Democratic Party events. That's what they do. And they make themselves filthy rich in the process. At the time that this was written, few fundraising firms have experienced as dramatic a fall in recent years as Mothership Strategies, once considered a juggernaut in the Democratic digital space. The firm is no longer in mainstream politics following fierce criticism over its aggressive fundraising tactics and allegations that its huge money holes were being funneled back to the company itself. But rather than disappear from the political scene, Mothership has found a lower profile roster of clients, primarily PACs not affiliated with politicians, and campaign finance records, interviews, and comms from the firm show that it's continuing to collect significant fees while it's deploying the very same aggressive business practices, such as sending fundraising emails with catastrophic eyebrow-raising language. Oh my God, Trump's going to destroy the world. Oh my God, we're not going to meet our fundraising deadline. We're going to have to shut down operations. You better donate to us now. Now. That gave it its prior status in the first place. The group's second act is raising new alarms among Dems who fear that the methods draw money away from campaigns and other liberal causes. They don't care if they win elections. That's not their priority. The priority is to make money. That's the first priority. Win or lose, that's how it goes. I don't think anyone, even Kamala Harris, you have $1.5 billion to your name, and if that was spent exclusively on winning the election and doing it the right way, I mean, I would think that the chair that Clint Eastwood spoke to at the 2008 Republican convention could have won the presidency with that much money behind them. But when you have a lot of wheels to grease, it's not as important whether you win or lose. It's whether you can maintain the system. That's the priority. The group's second act is raising new alarms among Dems and they fear those methods, they also worry its actions hurt the progressive community's reputation more broadly. Again, the liberal and the progressive communities are two completely different things. Completely. Mothership was paid over $50 million during the $50 million. And of that $50 million, it would appear that they pocketed about $48 million. And Lord knows what they did with that money. According to money and politics watchdog group Open Secrets, that total is a substantial portion of what it helps clients raise. All told, roughly 38% of donations raised by Mothership's clients have been fed back into the firm's fundraising machine as direct payments to the firm or other costs for its services, according to the firm. And again, that's just the firm. That's high for digital fundraising, according to others around industry. One competitor said the figure is usually somewhere between 10 and 20%, so at least double, maybe triple. I can't imagine that the donors that are giving money to these groups, and again, $50 million, you're stupid enough to give money to this? I mean, I want to say I sympathize with those that do give this money, but in a lot of ways, I don't. You know, once you're proved to be a sucker, I don't know what to say. I don't. It's such criminal behavior. What I do know is that there's a reason that the DNC is dying and can't raise money, because it's a scam. And once you've been exposed as a scam organization like Act Blue, why would anyone ever give you money again? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, don't get fooled again. Is that how it goes? Can't imagine that the donors that are giving the money to these groups will think that the money is going in large part to Mothership rather than the actual PACs or individual candidates. It's true. Former FEC Chair Ann Revelle, a Democrat, said in an interview, it is definitely unethical, since the whole point of contributions to political organizations is not to support the firms that are doing the fundraising, but to support specific people for office or legitimate political causes. Mothership strategies do generate large amounts of money for its clients. Yeah, no shit. And the hyperbolic emails it sends and high fees it charges are legal. Why is it legal? It's another form of usury, as far as I can see. Mothership argues that the current state of politics calls for its dramatic pleas for cash so that they can get rich. The firm defended its pricing structure, saying the most of the client money it receives actually passes through to other vendors. That is a lie. They are lying clear as day. The money we are raising for our clients is beneficial for the Democratic Party, and that is the end of the conversation. It is not beneficial to the progressive movement or anything else. It's beneficial to the Democratic Party that they lie about whether it benefits them or not. Jake Lipset, again, make with that stereotype as you'd like. Mothership clients spent nearly $20 million on independent expenditures in competitive races, donated over $6 million to campaigns, raised nearly $15 million for House and Senate campaigns, and deployed over 4,000 organizers. Mothership's approach has long been to write emails with alarmist subject lines or urgent pleas for support. They ask for donors to chip in to stop Republicans from forcing Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to resign, which is bullshit. That did not happen. Or to destroy Trump's extremist Supreme Court. No, the Democrats destroyed the Supreme Court. That's their fault. That's what happens when you don't seat Merrick Garland. That's what happens when you don't have Ruth Bader Ginsburg retire. That's what happens when you force Hillary Clinton on the American people instead of Bernie Sanders, who rightfully won that primary. Imagine if Bernie Sanders got to nominate 3 Supreme Court justices. Imagine how much different the country would look today. I'm not saying that would have solved all of the problems, but it certainly would have helped. And you better believe that Mothership Strategies has a real shine towards Israel. Mothership's approach has long been to write those alarmist emails, but as we know, those days, hopefully, are coming to an end. Now, will it definitely happen? I don't know. I can't say one way or the other. But what I know is that anyone who still believes that the Democratic Party is going to save you, and I know there are people here who still support it, I am giving you all the ammunition you need to know that you simply can't do it. It's a systemic rot. And that's the bottom line. I am out of battery power. I did want to do a little something with South Park. Colin, I don't know if you've got a couple of clips that we might be able to have a little fun with before we end for the evening. But I definitely wouldn't mind talking about it. And one more time for you guys, remember, patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. I believe we do not have any others for this evening. I think that's it for now. Let's see. No, just put in Cartman, Charlie Kirk. That one's readily available. I have to say, South Park has really been, well, they've always been ballsy. There is no question that Trey Parker and Matt Stone know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what the pulse of the average American feels right now in lieu of everything that's going on. The fact that they called out the genocide in Gaza, the fact that they have called out the Epstein files, they've done it all. And they're still going. They are, the way that they went after J.D. Vance, the way that they went after Charlie Kirk, the way that they're still going after Trump, the way that they went after Mr. Mackey, okay, and I'm going to work for ICE. They really laced into ICE, you know, when we talk about why are so many people applying for ICE. You know, conservative media did this whole big thing about why it's amazing how many people applied for the ICE job. Apparently there were 10,000 positions and 80,000 people applied. Well, why would they do that? Because the starting salary ranges around $80,000 a year. Hence the big, beautiful bill. We got to pay him a lot of money to convince them that this is a great job. And that's what happened. They got on board with it because it pays well. And in many desperate situations, people will pay the mental, physical, and emotional price to be able to get paid well. You make a deal with the devil. They say money's the root of all evil. I wouldn't say it's the root of all evil, but I would say it's the root of a lot of it. And so South Park went at it again. Yes, they're on fire. And so let's see some of the action that came in this last episode.
With my body. Let me ask you something. If a pregnant woman is killed and the baby dies too, why is the killer charged with a double homicide?
Well, but because people have different beliefs.
It's not about belief, it's about truth. Science confirms life begins at conception. So yes, Jeremiah 1:5 says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. But it's just morality that demands we protect the most vulnerable. So let me ask you, when do you think life began?
Eric, are you all right in there?
Yeah, I'm fine, Mom. I'm just in here master debating.
The play on words never gets old. And in the end, look, when it comes to the issue of abortion, it's a women's health issue. It's not, it is, honest to God, guys, if you have ever paid attention to the polling and have ever seen the numbers, over 80% of women are pro-choice. It's over half of men that don't believe women have the right to choose. Still don't get it. And I do think that part of that is because there's a lot of deep-seated hatred that men have towards women. There's really no other logical explanation that I can think of. And the idea that this has become such a master debate, it's insanity. But leave it to Lil Eric Cartman to channel his inner Lil face, Charlie Kirk. Just makes sense.
Look, Eric, that's enough. Let's get out of the bathroom.
I can't, Mom. I'm master debating for these young college girls.
That's very naughty, Eric. Stop it.
Mom, I finally got sponsored by a protein powder, so I got a master debate for a couple more hours. Leviticus 9, 1 through 8. Let me alone.
Again, their play on words, exceptionally well done. Not a surprise, but we're not done yet. We got a little bit more. You got to know that Mr. Mackey is getting his job and very happy that he's paid very well. Okay.
All right, recruits, this is it. We're heading to a location that might be filled with illegals. Let's take these bad hombres down.
We're just here for questioning. Cooperate and nothing bad. Holy shit!
Now, if you guys don't already hate Kristi Noem as much as I do, let South Park remind you of just how much of a shitty fucking person she is, who shoots dogs. Even though it's a cartoon, I agree 100% with public domain. Even in a cartoon format, I can't watch a dog get shot. Like there's just something really traumatizing about it. And as a reminder of what a shitty person she is, oh, yes, she did. I don't know if this includes the part where her face falls off, but hopefully it does.
Look, I'm really sorry about this. It's just, I got a monthly nut, you know? I gotta make my nut.
Did a good job in there, soldier.
Okay, thank you, Captain.
I know it's tough doing what's hard, but we could use more men like you in
Whoa! What the f?
Your Botox, Miss Noem?
Oh, yeah, fix me up, fix me up.
Another day doing what's tough.
Hey, buddy, welcome to Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. Oh, excuse me.
And you know what? I'm gonna leave it here. They are not letting up on Epstein either. They are daring the President of the United States to kick them off the air. They're daring him. They're telling him right now, we are not going to stop under any circumstances. In fact, we are going to get even more bombastic as we go forward. Who's to say that in the next episode that they don't make a direct reference to Epstein himself? Maybe bring him back from the dead. Who's to say that Ghislaine Maxwell won't be in the next episode? It's really gutsy what they're doing. But under these circumstances, I would say I'm not surprised, because this is who Matt and Trey have always been. They have always thumbed the eye of the establishment. We all remember what level of controversy went down when they went after Tom Cruise and he threatened not to promote Mission Impossible 3. This is, and you know, I can't really say who this is supposed to be. I thought it was Dershowitz. I thought that that's who they were using. But Jesus Christ, the fucking balls to go to this length and to do it at Mar-a-Lago. This is a really stupid idea. He really shouldn't have done this. I think he was being a little too literal about what was going on at my place. Trump, keep talking. You keep admitting that you were basically enslaving some girl that Epstein stole from you. Crazy.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Oh, God, Dora the Explorer, excuse me.
You know that Charlie Kirk tried to act like he was happy that he was being referenced in South Park, like it's like something good? No, dude. They fucking hate you. That's why they're using Cartman, because you're pathetic. You are not somebody that is to be appreciated or celebrated. You're a bad hombre. That's how it is. South Park, keep doing what you're doing. Or more specifically, Matt and Trey, keep doing what you're doing, because this is some serious, funny shit. No, I don't believe that Charlie Kirk is too obtuse to know. In fact, I think he knows quite well. Charlie Kirk is in it for the buck. Pure and simple. That's it. He has, of all the, and I'm talking about major content creators, he's probably the worst. He's right up there. The defense of Trump at all costs, the defense of Israel at all costs. I believe that Charlie Kirk is probably the most exploitative of all of them. He's the worst because of how many people he reaches. We got a lot of bad ones out there, but much like we're very fortunate to have this channel growing and hope will continue to sustain its growth. We've passed 48,100 subscribers this evening. Little by little, it all counts. I'm a master debater. What are you talking about? You can put me in the ring with anybody. I think I could hold my own. What do you guys think? Monday night, we're not sure who our guest is going to be, but obviously we'll have lots of great topics and stories to talk about. We'll have another clip dropping in less than 30 minutes, so be on the lookout for that. If you guys are not regularly checking out our clips, please make sure that you do. Make sure that you smash that like button on the clips. Make sure that you comment on the clips. Make sure that you share the clips if you can. Every little bit helps. And the same is true for our live stream. As soon as we break, make sure that you do hit that like button, but also make sure that you comment on the stream. And then make sure you share it if you can. Any and all support is tremendously appreciated. So once again, thank you all for being here. And one quick shout out. We got one more super chat. Another $5 super sticker from our piano man. You don't have to sing us a song. Your contributions are much appreciated. If I have to sing, I don't know, my voice is pretty deep, so you may not want that to happen. But with that said, we appreciate you all. We love you all. Like, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you Monday, and free Palestine. Good night, guys.